Have you ever looked back at your life and wondered, why do I keep attracting the same kinds of people? Why do I repeat the same mistakes? Why do I sabotage opportunities I desperately want? Why does life seem to happen to me instead of through me? For years, I believed many of these events were simply fate. I thought destiny had already written the script. But then I encountered a powerful statement from psychologist and philosopher Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That single sentence changed how I understood myself, spirituality, success, relationships, and even reality itself. Today I want to share what I learned from this quote, how it applies to everyday life, how modern psychology and even physics hint to its truths, and most importantly, how you can begin awakening the unconscious forces shaping your future. Stay with me until the end, because I will share a practical exercise that would reveal patterns you've been blind to for years. Imagine your mind as an iceberg. The conscious mind is the tiny tip above water. The unconscious mind is the massive hidden structure beneath the surface. Most people spend their lives trying to change the visible tip, while ignoring the enormous hidden foundation underneath. And yet, that hidden part quietly influences our decisions, emotions, habits, fears, desires, relationships, and beliefs. Think about someone who repeatedly enters toxic relationships. They may consciously say, I want a healthy partner. But unconsciously, they may carry childhood beliefs that love must be earned through suffering. Without realizing it, they continue choosing familiar pain. Then when that relationship collapses, they would say it was fate. But Young would argue something different. The unconscious pattern was directing the outcome all along. And here's the fascinating part. Most of us do this, not because we are weak, not because we are unintelligent, but because unconscious programs operate automatically, just like software running in the background of a computer. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people lose their jobs. The first person thinks I'm a failure. The second person thinks it is painful, but maybe a new opportunity is emerging. Same event, different reality. Why? Because each person is responding from different unconscious beliefs. The event is not controlling them. Their hidden interpretation is. This realization is both threatening and liberating. Threatening because it means we may not know ourselves as well as we think. Liberating because it means we can change. One of Jung's famous concepts was the shadow. The shadow contains the parts of ourselves we reject, suppress, or deny. Perhaps anger, perhaps jealousy, perhaps insecurity, perhaps fear, perhaps even the talent we are afraid to express. Imagine carrying a backpack your entire life without realizing it is there. The weight affects every step. Yet because you've carried it for so long, it feels normal. That is how unconscious patterns work. They become visible through familiarity. Here's a question. Have you ever strongly disliked someone for a trait that you secretly struggle with yourself? Jung believed that often what irritates us most in others reveals something hidden within us. Not always, but surprisingly often. The person who constantly criticizes others may secretly fear being judged. The person obsessed with controlling everything may be terrified of uncertainty. The person seeking constant validation may carry an unconscious belief that they are not enough. The shadow is not evil. It is simply the unseen, and what remains unseen controls us. Across many wisdom traditions, there are recurring messages. Know thyself, become aware, wake up, observe, witness. Whether we study ancient philosophy, meditation, contemplative tradition, or modern psychology, the invitation is remarkably similar. Bring light into darkness. Become conscious. Awakening is not necessarily acquiring new information. It is seeing clearly what was already there. Like turning on flashlight in a room you have occupied for years. The room doesn't change. Your awareness does. Let me share a story. Several years ago, a friend of mine dreamed of starting a business. He had talent, knowledge, passion. Everything seemed aligned. Yet every time an opportunity appeared, he delayed. He overthought. He procrastinated. He made excuses. Eventually, he discovered a hidden belief formed in childhood. Success attracted criticism in his family. Part of him unconsciously associated achievement with rejection. Once he recognized that pattern, something shifted. The fear lost much of its power. His external situation hadn't changed. His awareness had. That is the power of making the unconscious conscious. Modern physics shows us that observation matters. At the quantum level, observation influences outcome in surprising ways. While we must be careful not to oversimplify scientific concepts, there's a powerful metaphor here. In our psychological lives, awareness changes what we observe. The moment you become aware of a destructive habit, you are no longer completely identified with it. You create space between yourself and the pattern. And in that space, choice becomes possible. Awareness transforms reactions into response, automation into intention, and fate into participation. So how do we awaken the unconscious practically? Let me make it extremely practical. Technique number 1, pattern tracking. For the next 7 days, notice your recurring emotional triggers and ask yourself, what situations constantly upset me? What situations repeatedly make me anxious? What situations drain my energy? Pattern reveals program, and programs reveal unconscious beliefs. Technique number 2, journaling questions. Every evening, ask yourself, what surprised me today? What triggered me today? What did I avoid today? What am I afraid to admit to myself? Write honestly, not perfectly. Your unconscious often reveals itself through writing. Technique number 3, observe repetition. Life leaves clues. If the same challenge appears repeatedly, stop asking, why is this happening to me? And instead ask, what is this trying to teach me? That single question can transform your perspective. Technique number 4, conscious silence. Spend 10 minutes each day without music, social media, television, or distractions. Simply observe your thoughts. Do not fight them. Do not judge them. Just watch. Many people fear silence because silence reveals what noise conceals. But silence is often where self-discovery begins. Technique number 5, shadow work. Ask yourself, what qualities do I strongly criticize in others? Could any part of that exist within me? This requires courage, but it can unlock tremendous growth, because what we acknowledge loses its power to secretly controlling us. Imagine 2 futures. In the first future, unconscious patterns continue operating. Same fear, same reactions, same limitations, same excuses. Years pass, nothing fundamentally changes, and everything feels like fate. In the second future, awareness grows, patterns become visible, choices become intentional, relationships improve, confidence deepen, purpose becomes clearer. Life becomes something you participate in consciously. The difference between these futures is not lack, it is awareness. One of the greatest myths is that freedom means doing whatever we want. But Jung suggested something deeper. True freedom begins when we understand why we want what we want, why we fear what we fear, and why we react how we react. Because until then, invisible forces are pulling the strings, and we mistake those strings for destiny. So today, I leave you with a challenge. For the next week, become an observer of yourself. Notice your reactions, notice your fears, notice your recurring thoughts, notice your repeated stories. Because hidden inside those patterns may be the key to your next breakthrough. Remember, the unconscious is not your enemy. It is the unexplored territory, and every moment of awareness expands the map. Carl Jung's message was not meant to scare us. It was meant to empower us. Because once the unconscious becomes conscious, what looked like fate becomes understanding, what looked like limitation becomes opportunity, and what looked like darkness becomes light. Thank you for spending these moments with me. If this message resonated with you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Nova Wisdom Gems. Share this episode with someone who may be struggling to understand recurring patterns in their lives. Your support helps this channel continue creating thoughtful content, exploring philosophy, spirituality, consciousness, psychology, and the deeper mysteries of existence. And if you'd like to support the growth of Nova Wisdom Gems even further, check the links in the description and become part of the journey of awakening and self-discovery. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and remember, the life you transform tomorrow begins with the awareness you cultivate today. See you in the next episode.